The ship floated in the silent dark of space, its engines humming like a sleeping beast. Inside the engine room, one human worked alone. His name was Captain Daniel Hayes, but the crew just called him Hayes. He was not only the pilot of the ship, but also the one who cared for its heart, the great engine that kept them alive in the endless night. Hayes wiped sweat from his forehead. He had been checking fuel lines for the last hour. Nothing seemed broken, yet the engine readings showed small drops of power. A problem like that could mean danger if left alone. He leaned close to the glowing console, tapping numbers, running tests, listening to the steady hum. Then, without warning, the heavy door at the end of the room slid open. Hayes looked up, expecting maybe a mechanic or a message runner. Instead, his eyes widened. A figure stepped into the engine room, and for a moment, Hayes thought he was dreaming. It was her, the alien maid assigned to the ship weeks ago. Her name was Lyra. She had always appeared polite, distant, and dressed in the plain uniform of service. But now she stood in the doorway wearing nothing except a white apron. The fabric seemed too thin, almost glowing in the engine light. Hayes froze. The hum of the machine felt louder. He could not understand what he was seeing. Lyra's alien skin, pale with a faint shimmer, caught the light like polished silver. Her strange eyes, larger than human eyes and colored a deep violet. "Locked onto his, Captain," she said in a calm voice. "I need your help." Her words echoed strangely. Hayes blinked. His first thought was that she was joking, maybe even testing him. But Lyra never joked. She was always serious. Always. "Formal? Help?" Hayes repeated. "You walk into my engine room in only an apron and tell me you need help? What kind of help?" Lyra did not answer directly. She stepped closer, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. She seemed nervous, but her voice stayed steady. "It must be you," she whispered. "Only you can do this." Hayes felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. His instincts told him this was no prank. He glanced at the console and froze again. The numbers were moving fast. The energy flow had started to drop more sharply than before. "What did you do?" Hayes asked, his voice sharp. "Not me," Lyra said quickly. "The ship is in danger, the engine will not last, and if it fails here in the void, all of us will be lost." Hayes's hands moved across the console, checking the reactor's status. The readings made no sense. The power drain looked like sabotage, but there were no alarms, no errors in the system log. Something was draining energy from the ship in silence. He turned to Lyra again. "Explain now," he demanded. But instead of explaining, she looked at the walls, at the great pipes running through the engine room. Her violet eyes glowed faintly, as if she was searching for something only she could see. Hayes felt anger mixing with fear. He took one step closer to her, ready to force answers out of her. But then he noticed something. The apron she wore was glowing faintly. It was not simple cloth. It was alive with tiny lines of light pulsing softly like veins. "What are you wearing?" Hayes asked, his voice low. Lyra finally met his eyes again. "This apron is not what you think. It is a tool, a key, and a warning. My people gave it to me for this moment." Hayes stared at her. "What moment?" Before she could answer, the engine room shook. A deep vibration ran through the floor. Lights flickered, alarms began to flash across the console. Hayes rushed back to the controls. His heart raced. He saw power levels drop again, faster this time. His hands flew over switches. Trying to stabilize the flow? "Damn it," he muttered. "This is impossible." Lyra stepped closer to the console, standing beside him. Her glowing apron pulsed in rhythm with the ship's heartbeat. "You cannot fix it alone," she whispered. "You must let me help. This is why I came, why I am here." Hayes clenched his jaw. He had never trusted her fully. She was alien, mysterious, and now she stood half-dressed in the middle of a crisis. But the look in her eyes was not playful or cruel. It was desperate. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked. The ship trembled again, harder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling pipes. The alarms screamed louder. "Then we all die," she said simply, "and humanity will lose its chance." Hayes froze at her last words. Humanity's chance? he repeated. But before he could press her further, a sharp, high-pitched sound filled the engine room. His console lit up red, showing a new countdown, 29 minutes and 49 seconds. Hayes's chest tightened. It was a timer. A reactor. Overload countdown. If the numbers reached 0, the ship would explode into nothing. He looked at Lyra. The glow of her apron painted strange shadows across her silver skin. Her violet eyes burned like fire in the dark. "Trust me," she whispered, "or we are all finished." And as the seconds on the timer ticked down, Hayes realized he had no choice. The fate of his crew, his ship, maybe even his species, now rested on a strange alien maid wearing only an apron, asking for his help. The red glow of the countdown timer painted the engine room in warning light. Hayes's hand shook as he tried to keep the reactor stable, but the numbers kept falling. The ship was bleeding energy, like a wounded animal drifting through endless space. Beside him, Lyra stood silent, her glowing apron pulsing in rhythm with the alarms. She looked calm, too calm, as if she had expected this moment. Her violet eyes did not leave the engine core. Hayes's mind raced. He had faced pirates, storms, and systems breaking down before, but nothing like this. A silent drain, a hidden countdown, and an alien maid telling him to trust her. None of it made sense. "Talk," Hayes demanded. "What do you know about this? What is happening to my ship?" Lyra turned her head slowly. Her silver skin shimmered in the flickering lights. "This is not only your ship anymore, Captain. It has been touched, marked by something greater. The energy loss is not an accident, it is a signal." Hayes frowned. "A signal? From who?" She raised her hand, pointing to the curved pipes along the engine walls. At first Hayes saw only metal and wires, but as he looked harder, his breath caught. Symbols, faint, glowing symbols, were carved into the surface. He had worked in this room for months and never once had he noticed them. The shapes were alien. Spirals, sharp lines, circles inside circles. They pulsed softly with a cold blue light. Hayes stepped closer, reaching out his hand. His fingers brushed the nearest symbol, and instantly he felt a sting, like static electricity. A whisper filled his ears, words in a language he did not understand. His heart pounded. He pulled his hand back. "What the hell was that?" "The truth," Lyra said simply. "These are hidden messages, left inside your ship's bones. They respond only when the right moment comes." Hayes shook his head. "You're telling me my ship is covered in alien writing and I never saw it until now? That's impossible." "Not impossible," she corrected. "Hidden, waiting, testing. This ship is not only a machine, it has become a stage for something greater." The symbols glowed brighter as if reacting to her words. Hayes watched in disbelief as the shapes began to move, rearranging themselves, forming new patterns. The console beeped loudly. The countdown had dropped to 23 minutes. His throat tightened. He had no time for riddles, but he could not ignore what was happening in front of him. "Why me?" he asked suddenly. "Why not the crew? Why not someone else?" Lyra's voice was soft. "Because you are human, and that is what matters. My people do not test machines. We test the ones who build them, the ones who dream. Humanity's greatest weapon is not its ships or its weapons. It is imagination." Her words struck Hayes. He remembered the countless nights fixing broken parts with tools that should not have worked, the small tricks he had invented, the way he always pushed the machine a little beyond its limits. Humans had always survived because they refused to give up. Still, suspicion gnawed at him. So this is all some kind of test? Who are your people, really? And why hide it under an apron? For the first time, Lyra almost smiled, the faintest curve of her lips, because symbols frighten humans, but something simple, something foolish, something that looks harmless. You ignore, you relax, you do not see the weapon hidden in plain sight. Hayes stared at her. The glow of the apron had grown brighter, lines of light racing through its fabric like living veins. It was no longer just clothing. It was a device, a beacon, a key to something far larger. The engine room shook again, harder this time. Sparks burst from a nearby pipe. The whole ship groaned. The countdown dropped to 20 minutes. Hayes's voice broke into a shout. Enough! Tell me how to stop this or I throw you out of here right now. Lyra stepped closer, so close he could feel the strange coolness of her skin. Her violet eyes locked onto his. You cannot stop it by force. You cannot stop it with fear. The symbols must be read. Captain, they are instructions. Hayes felt. His stomach twist. He was no linguist. He was an engineer, a fighter, not a translator. But the symbols glowed brighter the longer he looked, as if daring him to try. His hand trembled as he traced one of the circles. To his shock, the whisper in his head grew clearer this time. Not words, but feelings. Pressure, urgency, warning. The circle expanded, showing a path of light across the wall, leading deeper into the ship. It's leading somewhere, Hayes said slowly. Like a map. Lyra nodded. Yes, a hidden chamber. One your crew has never entered. It is part of the test, and if we do not reach it before the timer ends, the ship will be destroyed. Hayes cursed under his breath. His crew was sleeping, unaware of the danger. The weight of their lives pressed on his chest. He wanted to call for help, but he knew time would vanish if he tried to explain. It was his choice now. Trust the alien, Maid and her glowing apron, or try to fight against something he barely understood. The countdown dropped to 18 minutes. Hayes tightened his fists. He looked at Lyra, who stood tall, patient, waiting for his answer. Her calmness frightened him more than the alarms. Finally, he said through clenched teeth, Fine, show me the way. The symbols on the wall flared bright, forming a glowing trail toward the back of the engine room. The door there, one Hayes had always thought was sealed and useless, now pulsed with blue light. As the two stepped toward it, the ship shook again, harder than before. The timer on the console dropped to 17 minutes. Hayes swallowed hard. Each second felt like a blade cutting closer. But he pushed forward, following the alien Maid into the unknown, and as the sealed door slid open with a hiss, Hayes knew he was walking into something far bigger than an engine problem. He was walking into a secret meant only for humanity, hidden in the heart of his ship, waiting for this exact moment. The hidden door slid open with a hiss. Beyond it stretched a narrow passage Hayes had never seen on any blueprint. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of old metal and something faintly sweet, almost like ozone. The glowing symbols along the wall brightened, marking the way forward. Hayes stepped in first, his boots echoing on the steel floor. Lyra followed silently, her strange apron pulsing with light as if guiding. Then behind them, the engine room's alarm still screamed, the countdown clock ticking closer to doom. 17 minutes left. The passage felt older than the rest of the ship. The walls were rough, carved, not manufactured like the rest of the vessel. Hayes frowned, running his fingers over the metal. It was not human work. It was alien. Finally, they reached a small chamber. At the center stood a raised platform with a dark crystal floating above it. Blue energy swirled inside the crystal like a storm trapped in glass. The symbols carved around. The chamber glowed in rhythm with the storm. Hayes stared. What is this place? This isn't part of my ship. Lyra stepped forward, her violet eyes fixed on the crystal. This chamber has been here since before you were born, Captain. Before humans ever touched this vessel. My people built it. We planted it inside your engine room, waiting for this day. Hayes's jaw tightened. You're telling me my ship has been carrying alien cargo without me knowing? How long have you been lying to us? She turned slowly, her voice calm. I did not lie. I served as told, but I was placed here for this exact purpose, to guide you when the test began. Hayes felt anger boil inside him. He hated being used, hated secrets. But before he could speak, his eyes fell again on her apron. The glowing lines had grown brighter, racing faster now. As she stepped closer to the crystal, the apron pulsed in perfect rhythm with it. Hayes narrowed his eyes. That apron of yours, it's not clothing, is it? Lyra paused, then placed her hand on the fabric. No, Captain. This is alien technology. Older than your Earth's machines, it is both shield and key. It hides the crystal's power until the chosen human is ready. Chosen human, Hayes repeated sharply. Why me? Because humanity must prove itself, she said. Your species is bold, reckless, curious, and stubborn, but the galaxy does not know if you are worthy to stand among it. This test decides that answer, fail, and your light ends here, pass, and humanity steps forward into the stars. Her words struck Hayes like a blow. He had always known the universe was dangerous, but he never imagined his own life could be a scale weighing the future of his people. He pointed to the crystal. And that thing? What does it want? It does not want, it reacts, Lyra said. It is a living core, it tests, it listens, but it cannot be touched without this apron. If you try, it will burn you to ash. As if to prove her words, the crystal flared, blue lightning dancing across its surface. Hayes stepped back, his instincts screaming. He had seen engines overload before, but this felt alive. Lyra slowly untied the apron, holding it out like a sacred relic. The glow filled the chamber, symbols on the walls responding. This apron is a disguise for what it truly is. A memory net. It carries the knowledge of my ancestors, the rules of the test, and the key to the core. She extended it toward Hayes. But it must be worn by you. Hayes froze. His eyes darted between the apron and the crystal. You're saying this apron thing is the only way to control that core? Yes, she said firmly. Only when you wear it will the core recognize you. Only then will it reveal the full test. Hayes's chest tightened. He was a soldier, a pilot, an engineer, but he was not prepared for this. The idea of putting on alien technology, trusting it with his life, made his skin crawl. But the countdown was still running. 14 minutes left. What happens if I refuse? He asked again, his voice sharp. Then the ship dies, and your people's future is cut away, Lyra replied without hesitation. Hayes swallowed hard. His crew, sleeping in their cabins, trusted him to keep them alive. Humanity's chance, as she called it, rested on his shoulders. He had no time to doubt. Slowly, with a grim look, he took the apron from her hands. The fabric felt strange, not like cloth but not like metal either. It was warm, pulsing softly as though alive. When he lifted it, it wrapped around him on its own, clinging to his chest and shoulders. Hayes gasped, his vision blurred, his ears rang with whispers. Alien. Voices, countless voices speaking at once. He staggered, gripping his head, but the voices began to fade into patterns, into meaning. Symbols flashed in his mind. Instructions, diagrams, warnings. He saw the engine core, saw the ship's systems, saw pathways of light connecting everything. He understood, at least partly, what was happening. The crystal pulsed brighter. Responding to him, the apron's light merged with the core's glow. The entire chamber trembled. Symbols on the wall shifted again, forming a giant spiral that pointed directly at Hayes. Lyra's voice broke through the noise, calm and steady. Now you see, Captain. You and only you can complete the trial. This apron binds you to the ship's heart. You are connected now. Hayes took a deep breath, his fear mixing with a strange thrill. He looked at the crystal, and for the first time he didn't feel only fear, he felt challenge. 13 minutes left. Hayes squared his shoulders, his voice steady. All right then. If this is humanity's test, I'll face it. The crystal flared again, the chamber vibrating violently. Sparks burst from the walls, and the countdown echoed louder in his ears. The trial had only just begun. The chamber shook like a beast waking from a long sleep. The floating crystal roared with blue lightning, and the glowing apron clung tight around Hayes's body. Its pulse matched his heartbeat. Faster, louder, as if the ship itself was inside him. Hayes gasped, trying to steady his breath. Images still flashed in his head. Alien diagrams, codes, endless streams of knowledge too big for his mind. He pressed his hand to the wall, and the glowing symbols bent toward him, shifting into patterns that shaped themselves like doors waiting to be opened. Lyra stood at the edge of the platform, her violet eyes watching him without fear. Now you feel it, Captain. Now you see the truth, but the next step is not mine to take. It is yours. Hayes clenched his jaw. You keep talking about tests, about truth, about humanity's chance, but what exactly do you want me to do? I need answers, not riddles. Her voice stayed calm, steady, like someone who had rehearsed these words 1,000 times. The crystal will open only if you choose, Captain. It does not respond to force. It does not obey fear. It listens only to the will of a human who decides with full intent. If you trust me, if you allow the apron to guide you, the ship will survive. But if you fight against it, the engine will collapse, and everything will end. Hayes looked at the countdown glowing red above the chamber. 12 minutes and 30 seconds left. His stomach tightened. Sweat rolled down his back. He turned sharply to her. And what if I trust you and you're lying? What if this whole thing is just a trap to make me give up control of my ship? Lyra didn't flinch. Then humanity is not ready, and the test is answered. The galaxy will move on without you. Her calmness cut deeper than any threat. Hayes paced back and forth. His instincts screamed to act, to fix, to grab tools and fight the machine. But another part of him, the quiet part that had carried him through dark nights, whispered that she was telling the truth. He looked again at the crystal, blue storm swirling inside it like an eye staring back at him. The apron pulsed against his skin, whispering, urging. It was waiting for his choice. Hayes pressed both hands against the platform, closing his eyes. For a moment he remembered Earth, the crowded cities, the endless wars, the hunger for the stars. Humanity had always rushed forward, reckless but unstoppable. He thought of his crew asleep above him, trusting him to bring them home. He opened his eyes, his voice low. Fine, I'll choose, but I choose my way. The symbols around the chamber flared. The spiral shifted, forming lines of light that pointed directly to the crystal. Hayes stepped forward, the apron glowing brighter with every step. Lightning from the crystal arc toward him, but instead of burning, it wrapped around him like chains of light. Pain shot through his body. His teeth clenched. His knees nearly buckled, but the apron held strong, shielding him. The alien voices in his head grew louder, no longer whispers, but a chorus shouting in languages he did not know. Lyra raised her hand, her voice cutting through the chaos. Focus, Captain. The core listens to your choice, not your pain. Decide now. Do you open the path or do you walk away? Hayes forced himself upright. He looked into the heart of the storm. His voice broke out, steady and hard. I open the path. The chamber exploded with light. The crystal cracked open, revealing layers of spinning rings, each one filled with shifting alien symbols. The countdown froze for a single second, then began again, faster. 11 minutes left. Hayes staggered. The apron pulling him toward the spinning rings. The symbols burned into his vision. He realized with horror that they were not just words. They were instructions, tasks, puzzles, a sequence that had to be solved before the timer hit 0. It's a code, Hayes whispered. A damn alien code. Yes, Lyra said, her voice calm but urgent now. This is the trial. Each ring is a lock, and only you can open them. My people gave the galaxy this test, but only humans have the kind of mind that might pass it. That is why it had to be you. Hayes cursed under his breath. He had broken encryption before, hacked systems with nothing but a wrench and a stubborn will. But this was something beyond human design. Still, as the symbols shifted, his instincts began to piece them together. Shapes mirrored the flow of an engine, spirals matched energy cycles. It was a code written in the language of power itself. He touched the first ring, and the apron pulsed, guiding his hand. The symbols reformed. Locking into place, the first ring slowed, then clicked still. 10 minutes left. Hayes exhaled hard. All right, I think I can do this. But as he reached for the second ring, the chamber shuddered violently. Cracks split the walls, blue fire spilling out. The voices in his head screamed louder, warning him of failure. Lyra's voice cut through again, sharp this time. You must hurry, Captain. The ship cannot survive long without you. Hayes gritted his teeth, sweat dripping into his eyes. Then I'll do what humans always do, he growled. I'll improvise. He slammed his hand onto the second ring, forcing it to shift against the flow. The apron blazed, the crystal roared. For a terrifying second, Hayes thought he had broken everything. Then the second ring clicked into place. 9 minutes left. The chamber shook again, the storm growing wild. Hayes's arms trembled, but his eyes burned with determination. He looked at the third ring, then back at Lyra. If humanity's future depends on me, then I'm not stopping here. And with that, he reached deeper into the storm, ready to face the code that could save or destroy them all. The storm inside the crystal raged brighter. 3 rings spun wildly around each other, symbols flashing like fire. Hayes's arms shook as he fought to lock the patterns into place. The apron clung tighter to him, its glow wrapping his body like armor. 8 minutes left, the chamber pulsed with blue light. The walls hummed as if alive. Hayes pressed forward, his eyes fixed on the shifting code. But behind him he heard Lyra whisper something under her breath. Words not meant for him, words in her alien tongue. Hayes froze for a moment, suspicion rising in his chest. His hands hovered over the third ring. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice low and sharp. Lyra's violet eyes flicked toward him, glowing faintly. She did not look guilty, only calm. "I asked my ancestors to guide you, Captain. The voices you hear are not only in your head. They are the echoes of those who came before." Hayes narrowed his eyes. "Ancestors? You mean this whole test isn't about the ship at all? It's about me, about humanity?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, the ship is only the vessel. The crystal is only the stage. But the real question is simple. Can humanity rise beyond instinct, beyond fear, and choose a higher path?" Her words hit him like a blade. He thought about the wars back on Earth, the greed, the endless fighting over scraps of land and pride. He thought about the crew who trusted him now, their lives in his hands. And he thought about himself, a man who had spent years running from failure. Hayes gritted his teeth, forcing his focus back to the ring. "And if we fail this test? What then?" Lyra's voice was steady. "Then humanity's light is snuffed out quietly. Your people will be left in darkness and the galaxy will turn away. You will never know it. But doors will close forever." Hayes's chest tightened, anger surged through him. "So this was never about my ship, never about saving us. It was always about you judging us." Lyra stepped closer, her voice still calm. "Not judging, proving. My people once faced the same trial. We were given a chance just as you are now. We passed, barely, and it cost us much. Humanity must face its own trial. For the galaxy does not gift respect. It is earned." Her words rang in his head. Hayes slammed his hand against the third ring. The symbols shifted violently, burning into his vision. Pain shot through his skull, but he forced them into place. The third ring slowed, then clicked. 7 minutes left. The crystal screamed, the chamber trembling like it would collapse. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Hayes staggered, clutching his chest. His vision blurred. "He could barely stand, Captain," Lyra said, her voice louder now. "You must continue. You are the first of your kind to stand here. Do not waste it." Hayes glared at her through the haze. "Why me? Out of billions, why choose me?" "I'm not special." Her eyes softened for the first time. "You are wrong, Captain. The trial does not choose kings or scholars or heroes. It chooses those who survive, those who endure. Humanity's strength is not in perfection, but in persistence. That is why it is you." Her words struck him like thunder. He thought of his failures, of battles lost, of nights he almost gave up. But he had kept going, always, even when it hurt, even when hope was thin. That was the story of humanity. Hayes steadied himself. He looked at the fourth ring. Its symbols were harder now, shifting too quickly to follow. But as he reached out, the apron pulsed brighter, feeding him strength. The alien whispers in his head began to align, not words, but rhythms, patterns, like music. He pressed into the code. His mind spun with connections. Each symbol was like a gear, each movement like fuel lines. He saw it not as alien language, but as an engine, a machine of thought, and he was an engineer. The fourth ring locked. 6 minutes left, Hayes gasped, sweat dripping into his eyes. His body trembled, but he pushed forward. The fifth ring was worse, faster. Its shapes seemed designed to confuse. They spun in ways that made no sense. But Hayes stopped, closed his eyes, and breathed. He remembered what Lyra had said. The trial was not about force, it was about choice. He touched the fifth ring gently, not pushing, not forcing, letting it flow into place. Slowly, the chaos bent into order. The fifth ring clicked still. 5 minutes left. The crystal flared, the chamber nearly tearing itself apart. The walls cracked open, blue fire leaking through. Hayes stumbled, but the apron tightened, holding him upright. He saw 2 more rings left, each harder than the last. He turned to Lyra, shouting over the storm. "Tell me the truth. If I pass this test, what happens? What do your people do then?" For the first time, Lyra's calm broke. Her voice trembled. "If you pass, the galaxy will finally see. Humanity will be invited to rise. You will not be alone anymore. Your people will walk among the stars as equals, but only if you finish." Hayes's heart pounded. His vision swam. But deep inside, something burned bright. He thought of Earth again. Of his crew. Of every stubborn human who refused to bow. He would not let this test end them. 4 minutes left. He reached for the 6th ring, lightning burning his arms. His teeth clenched as he forced the symbols into order. The pain was unbearable, but he held on. The 6th ring locked. 3 minutes left. Hayes fell to his knees, his body screaming in pain. He looked at the final ring. It spun faster than all the rest, a blur of impossible shapes. He knew this was it. The final choice, the one that would decide everything. He dragged himself up, his voice hoarse but strong. "I don't care if this kills me. Humanity doesn't quit. Not today. Not ever." The apron blazed, brighter than a star. The final ring slowed, shifting under his touch. The symbols aligned and the last lock clicked. 2 minutes left. The crystal split open, its storm calming. A pillar of light shot upward, shaking the entire ship. The countdown froze, then vanished. The alarm silenced. Hayes stood in the glow, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. He had done it, but Lyra's voice, trembling now, whispered the words that chilled him more than the storm. "The locks are open, Captain. Now the real trial begins." The chamber glowed like a living sun. The crystal had split into 7 pieces, each floating in perfect balance around the platform. Streams of light connected them, forming a cage of power. Hayes stood in the center, his body shaking, the apron glowing brighter than ever. The countdown was gone, but the ship still trembled. Metal groaned in the walls, sparks rained from the ceiling. The trial was not over, not yet. Hayes looked at Lyra. "You said the locks were open. What does that mean? What happens now?" Lyra's violet eyes burned with something new. Not calm, not fear, but awe. "The locks were only the beginning, Captain. Now you must face the core itself. It will test you directly, mind against mind, will against will. This is the heart of the trial." Before Hayes could answer, the crystal fragments spun faster. The chamber roared with energy. The light bent and twisted, forming shapes. Shadows flickered in the glow, and then Hayes saw them. Figures, tall and alien, made of light. Their eyes burned like stars. Whispers filled his head, not chaotic this time, but sharp, cutting into his thoughts like blades. Human, prove yourself!" Hayes staggered back, clutching his head. "What the hell are these things?" "The guardians of the core," Lyra said, her voice trembling with respect. "Echoes of those who built the test? They will not let you pass unless you defeat them." The figures moved, their bodies shifting like smoke and lightning. One raised a hand and a wave of energy slammed into Hayes. He flew back, crashing against the wall. The apron flared, protecting him from burning alive. Hayes groaned, dragging himself up. "So now I'm fighting ghosts, great." The figures circled him, their whispers growing louder. Too weak, too young, too reckless. Hayes spat blood on the floor, his voice rough. "Yeah, I've heard that before." The apron pulsed, lines of light extending from it like wires. Hayes looked down, realizing he could control them. He willed one forward, and it lashed out like a whip of fire, striking one of the guardians. The figure screamed, its form flickering. Hayes's heart raced. All right, I guess this is my weapon now. The guardians attacked together, bolts of energy flying. Hayes dodged, rolled, and countered with lashes of light. Each strike weakened them, but each hit he took pushed him closer to collapse. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned. "Focus!" Lyra shouted. "They are not fighting your body, Captain. They are fighting your will. Stand firm or you will fall." Hayes clenched his jaw. He thought of Earth, of the crew above, of the billions who would never know this battle was happening. He forced himself to stand straighter, to fight harder. The apron responded, growing stronger as his determination rose. The light lashes became blades, cutting through the guardians' forms. One by one, they shattered into sparks, until only one remained. This last guardian was larger, its eyes burning hotter. It raised both hands, forming a storm of fire around the chamber. The heat scorched Hayes's skin, even through the apron. He fell to one knee, almost broken. The whispers thundered in his mind. "Give up, human. You are not enough." Hayes roared, forcing himself upright. "I've heard that my whole damn life, and guess what? Humanity doesn't quit." He charged forward, the apron blazing like a star. The guardian unleashed its storm, but Hayes cut through it, slicing the air with light. He slammed into the figure, driving his will against its power. For a long second it felt like the universe itself was tearing. The chamber shook, walls cracking apart. The guardian screamed, then shattered into 1,000 sparks that faded into nothing. Silence fell. Only the hum of the crystal remained. Its fragments slowly pulled together, fusing into a single glowing core. Hayes fell to the ground, gasping. His body ached, his skin burned. But he was alive. Lyra rushed forward, kneeling beside him. For the first time, her voice shook with emotion. "You did it, Captain. You faced the Guardians and survived. Humanity has taken a step no one thought possible." Hayes coughed, forcing a tired smile. "Yeah, well, you picked the wrong human if you wanted someone who quits." The core floated down, settling into the platform. Its glow dimmed, shifting from harsh blue to a softer white. Hayes felt its presence in his mind, no longer whispering, but watching, acknowledging. The chamber's cracks sealed, the walls smoothed. The storm was gone. The ship's shaking stopped. For the first time since it began, everything was still. Hayes pushed himself up, looking at the core. "So what now? Trial's over?" Lyra's eyes softened, but her words were heavy. "Not over, Captain. Past but not finished. The Guardians only opened the path. The true test lies in the choice you make next." Hayes frowned, his body aching. "Choice? What choice?" She looked at the core, her voice low. "It will offer you power, Captain. Knowledge beyond human reach, enough to change your world forever. But if you take it, humanity may rise too fast, too recklessly, and burn itself. If you refuse, you save your people from temptation, but you leave them blind, still struggling in the dark." Hayes felt his stomach twist. His heart pounded, sweat ran down his face. He had fought, bled, nearly died. And now it came to this, a choice that could shape the entire future of humanity. The core pulsed once, as if waiting. Lyra turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "This is the final step, Captain. Not of strength, not of will, but of wisdom. What will humanity choose?" Hayes looked at the core, then at Lyra. His breath came heavy. His mind spun. He had faced battle, but never a decision this heavy. This was not only his life, but the destiny of his entire species. And as the core's light washed over him, Hayes realized that the hardest fight was not the battle he had just won, but the choice he now had to make. The chamber was silent, the crystal floating above the platform like a waiting judge. Its light pulsed steady, no longer violent, no longer storming. It seemed patient, As if time itself bowed to this moment, Hayes stood there, his body aching, his breath heavy. The apron clung to him, still glowing faintly. He stared at the core, his heart pounding. He had fought guardians, endured fire, cracked alien codes, and now, after all of it, he stood before a choice. Lyra's violet eyes did not leave him. Her voice was soft, almost reverent. The trial is not about strength, Captain. It is about direction. The core now offers you two paths. One will give humanity knowledge beyond its years, power to rise quickly, to build wonders in decades instead of centuries. The other will deny that knowledge, leave humanity to climb slowly by its own hands through trial and error. The core does not care which you choose. It only asks you to choose with intent. Hayes's throat tightened. He thought of Earth, the crowded cities, the hunger, the endless wars. He thought of the crew above, men and women who dreamed of reaching new worlds, who trusted him with their lives. He thought of every stubborn human who had refused to quit. Power now, or struggle later. Hayes whispered, "A gift or the long road." The apron pulsed as if listening. The core's light grew brighter, waiting for his answer. Lyra stepped closer, her voice low. "Do not think of what is easy, Captain. Think of what is true to your people. What makes them human? That is the answer the galaxy waits for." Hayes closed his eyes, sweat rolled down his face, his mind screamed at him. The thought of humanity leaping forward with alien power was tempting. No more wars, no more hunger, a future of wonders. But deep down he knew the cost. Humanity rushing too fast could destroy itself. Power without scars, without mistakes, would corrupt them. He opened his eyes, his voice steady now. Humanity doesn't need shortcuts. We don't need gifts. We climb, we fall, we learn, we bleed for every step. That's what makes us strong. If we rise, it will be because we earned it, not because it was handed to us. The chamber trembled, not with anger, but with acknowledgement. The crystal pulsed brighter. The light enveloped Hayes, surrounding him. For a moment he felt the core inside his mind, vast and endless. And instead of giving him power, it gave him something else. Respect. The voices of the guardians whispered again, but no longer sharp. They spoke like echoes of stars. Humanity has chosen, humanity is worthy. Hayes gasped, the light fading. The crystal's storm calmed, shrinking into a single glowing shard. It floated down slowly, settling into his hands, its light no longer dangerous, but warm, steady, alive. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes filled with awe. "You chose the harder path, Captain, the one of patience, of growth. That is the path my people chose long ago. Few species ever make that choice. Most demand power, most burn out, but you refused it. That is why humanity will endure." Hayes looked at the shard in his hand. Its glow pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "So what do I do with this?" he asked, his voice rough. "Keep it," Lyra said softly. "It is not a weapon, not a tool, it is a witness. It will remain with you as proof. When the galaxy looks your way, they will see this shard, and they will know humanity chose to rise by its own strength." Hayes stared at the shard, then at her. His body still burned with pain, but his chest felt lighter. His decision was made. The chamber's walls shifted, the hidden symbols dimmed, the passage back to the engine room opened. The test was finished, the ship was safe. Hayes turned to Lyra. "So what now? You disappear like it never happened?" For the first time she smiled, a real smile. "Perhaps, Captain, my role is done. You no longer need me. Humanity no longer needs a guardian. You have proven yourselves." Her form shimmered, light spreading across her skin. The apron dissolved, breaking into streams of energy, wrapping around Hayes before fading into nothing. Lyra's silver skin glowed brighter, her shape dissolved, and in an instant, she was gone. Hayes stood alone in the chamber, the shard glowing faintly in his hand. He felt the silence press around him, but it was not empty. It was victory. He walked back into the engine room. The alarms were gone, the consoles calm, the hum of the ship steady, as if nothing had happened. He looked at the shard one last time, then tucked it into his pocket. When he reached the main deck, the crew was waking. They asked him what had happened, why the ship had shaken, why alarms had screamed. Hayes only shook his head. "Just a little trouble with the engines," he said, keeping the truth to himself. He walked to the viewing window, staring out at the endless stars. His hand tightened on the shard. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had proven itself. Not with gifts, not with shortcuts, but with choice. Hayes smiled faintly, whispering to himself, "We'll climb our way up, step by step, and when we reach the top, the galaxy will know. Humans earned it." The shard pulsed once in his pocket as if agreeing, and somewhere far beyond the stars, unseen eyes turned toward Earth, not with doubt, not with